Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Ayes have it. G4, Jim.
Well, G4 and G7, actually, if we could, Mr. Chairman, my comments or concerns are about both of them are equally the same. And first of all, there's two issues. One of them is the cost of acquiring equipment. And I know from personal experience in my business, and when it comes to the copy machines, that leases cost a lot of money. You know, getting a machine, it's really designed more for business to be able to, I guess, even out over a period of time, cash flow wise, capital costs. But you pay a pretty good price for doing that. Now, obviously, these are state-funded programs, so therefore, there's no impact on the general fund in that respect. But we're still supposed to be stewards of even the state dollars. And so I really think that county administration needs to look at the practice that has evolved over the years in terms of utilizing lease programs. I mean, we have a fair amount of capital dollars available in our budget, and I think in some cases outright purchase of the equipment versus leasing the equipment, you can actually purchase for a lot less because you're not paying those extra costs. So I mean, we dog the treasurer for not earning more than 0.5% on $70 million, let's say as an example, but yet we'll turn around and we will pay out these, I think in some cases, exorbitant lease costs on basic equipment we need to operate with. So that's one issue that I've had a long-standing concern that I've expressed in the past, and I'll express again, and I think, Richard, it might be worthwhile to look at what those alternatives are. And the other problem that kind of deals with these leases, and I've seen this happen over at the city, sitting there at their meetings and watching, is that they get a lease, and then prior to the end of the lease, some cases you can pay $1 and then you buy out the lease and now you own the equipment. But what happens is they roll it forward, so whatever is the balance of the lease that's due on the old equipment as you go to upgrade to some new equipment is now rolled into. So they have one machine over there that it basically is going to cost them $30,000 because of the way they roll forward the lease cost, when you could probably go out and buy the machine used or refurbished or possibly even new for a lot less than $30,000. So I mean, that's where the traps get in. And of course, the leasing companies love it because they make good money, and because you're a government entity, you have some guaranteed cash flow coming from it. The second part of it is the operating costs, and that is when you look at the per copy costs, and this is really where the copy machine companies make their money. They set up pretty good deals there, and I'm glad to see that the per copy rate for black and white and color copy have come down considerably over the years, and this is pretty standard with what's happening in the private sector. But in particular, it would be on G7 with the 4 machines there now. The concern I have when you look at it is the actual lease costs. Now, I mean, the costs associated budget-wise, I have to give Yvonne some credit that when you look at overall what we're now paying and what we would be paying with this new upgrade, we're theoretically are going to cut our monthly operating costs for these 4 departments by about $1,500, and $1,500 times 12, starts adding up to a chunk of change. But where I see is a concern is that Ray Morgan has got it set up, and they're charging 0.008 for black and white copies and 0.05 for color copies, is that they take the allocated amount and distribute it across the 4 machines evenly, even though 2 machines have a higher utilization and the other 2 machines have a lower utilization. And when you look at that, once you get past that 1/4 breakdown for each of the 4 machines, is in one particular machine, when you add up the overage cost, which is above and beyond the minimum allocation that they've kind of built into it, you're adding about $400 a month in terms of additional costs. Now, obviously, with the restructuring you're proposing in terms of raising those particular caps, I think we would be better served is if we're gonna have a contract with these folks, instead of having it, okay, 5 copies with this machine, 5 copies with this machine, 5 copies with this machine, and 5 with that one, is that you have a pool of 20 copies being made by the Ford machines, and talk about the overages, so that when you have a machine that's underutilized versus one that's being overutilized, it kind of balances out. Now, obviously, the copy machine company probably doesn't like that idea because they're counting on the fact, you know, that there's going to be overages on that. And that was something that Chris Beard ran into with this very same company about 10, 12 years ago. They came in and set up a machine and said, we'll give you X number of copies, and that was when color was new as an option, and pretty soon everybody was making copies in color, whether they needed it or not, and as long as they stayed under the cap, they did fine. But what happened was they wound up making everything and went way over, and pretty soon she had this bill for, I don't know, several $1,000s, and she realized that, we need to kind of manage that. And so I think, that part of it, when I look at this particular contract, I see a lot of open-endedness. We talk about waste, fraud, and abuse in terms of functioning at, that's a buzzword that's used out on the street a lot, especially at election time and stuff. This isn't fraud, and this may categorize in some respects, could be looked upon as being waste. It could even be looked upon in terms of being abuse. We do it because we can, but I really kind of think that we need to zero in on how we administer these kind of programs. I mean, I'm all in favor for having machines, and I tell you, it's amazing the technology that is out there. And if you can get yourself positioned well, cost-wise, you can actually work to your benefit. But just because we're a government and it's easy to just go this route, I really would like to see us invest in just like what we do with our automobiles and we do with our computers and stuff like that. There, we put into the budget and you build up a pool, and then when it comes time to replace that asset, we have the monies there to buy the new car, to buy the new computer, to buy whatever it is to replace that workstation. We're doing just the opposite as it relates to our copier fleet. And we've got these scattered all throughout numerous buildings. I wandered around, there's one sitting in this room right in here. It's a different variety. There's another one upstairs in that one. There's probably one in the back. I'm planning 3 of them in this particular building. And when you kind of start figuring out how many machines we have, how many copies we're making, and how we kind of do all that, it can add up to a pretty good chunk of change. So I think that's something, Mr. Egan, that would be worth looking at. I know Julie, I have to give Julie Morgan a lot of credit. She's kind of like the copier Nazi when it comes to shutting down, people running totally amok. But I think, though, the purchasing process here that we have is extremely costly. So because of that, I'm going to withhold my support for these 2 agenda items, because I think it doesn't really serve the best interest of the county to purchase them this way. I'm all in favor of the machines if we can acquire them in a little bit more cost-effective fashion.
Mel, or anybody, Eileen? Go ahead, Eileen.
Thank you for that 10 minutes of information, Mr. Chapman.
That's the short version for you, but I'd be happy to give you the half-hour version.
I'm sure everybody would appreciate that. I have a question. This is what I printed on that lease. I had a friend print it out, and it looks like that.
Well, I understand it. Yeah. Sorry.
Okay, whatever. Jim, or Richard?
I would just, I guess, like to respectfully disagree a little bit with Supervisor Chapman as far as the purchasing process. In the case of both these departments, the departments are charged with evaluating their needs and the best method of accommodating those needs. And then, by virtue of the purchasing policy, which is overseen by the purchasing agent and myself, to figure out the best method to acquire them, whether that's leasing, purchasing them, going out to bid, etc. And in the case of the Health and Social Services copier, in conjunction with all those parties, they decided that this KCDA mass contract was the most financially efficient way to do that without going to the expense of a bid. And they're oftentimes a lot cheaper than going out to bid. And in the case of the child support services one, I believe they did go out to a,
Yeah, we also did.
this is KCDA as well. They're both KCDA pricing, which is a much better price typically than the county can get, because that's a large school organization that goes out to bid these copiers. So for what it's worth, that's my input on that.
Well, I think that the purchase price is okay, and I appreciate that side of it. But when you add to it the leasing costs on top of the purchase price, now, you know, a $15,000 unit's gonna cost you $23,000. And if you roll that forward with the leases like the leasing companies like to do, you know, you can be just like that one that recently went through over at the city where, you know, they were basically financing $31,000 for a machine that was probably only worth $18,000.
At least
Both purchase and leasing options were evaluated, and this turned out to be the cheapest in these options.
So you're telling me you can lease a piece of equipment for less cost than actually just paying cash for it?
When you incorporate all the costs of maintenance and support.
So you're financing the maintenance as well?
No.
'Cause that's a whole separate transaction.
Yvonne might want to.
Right,
comment on
well, no, the maintenance cost is not on the lease, it's only the copier itself. The maintenance covers all the maintenance, the toner, all of that. And none of us have printers, individual printers, we all use the copiers to print.
Which is a smart thing to do.
Right, we got rid of the printers years ago, that way we don't have any toner expense because that is covered in the maintenance agreement. So whether we use black and white or colored toner in the copiers, that's all included in the maintenance. We don't pay any additional expense for that. Where years ago, when we all had individual printers, our toner expense was ridiculous. We were ordering toner constantly. And so actually, this proposal is cheaper than what we've been paying the last 5 years. All of these end June 30th. There's nothing carrying forward till July 1st. These copiers are done, and I mean, they're done. Ours is breaking down on a weekly basis. After 5 years, we've used and abused them, so.
Yeah, I have no problem with replacing them out, and maybe 5-year cycle is maybe too ambitious. You probably should be looking at a 3 or 4-year cycle, possibly based on use.
Usually
What-
5 years gets us where
Yeah,
we need to be.
what I'm concerned about is that we're committing with this lease, we're gonna be paying $11,800 for the one in Kelly's office, you know, in terms of, you know, is that cheaper than paying cash for that same machine? If you went to Forrest's office, is he gonna sell it to you for $11,800?
No, I think it's a $30,000 machine, if I remember right. It's a fairly expensive machine.
Well, most of them are, they're brand new, they're usually running 25, 30,000.
And this
but you
one
can-
is pretty.
You can get a new reconditioned one that has guaranteed, I mean, has low, it's a repo in basically from somebody who couldn't maintain their lease payments that has low mileage on it for 2/3 or half the price of a new one. It's like a car, you don't have to go out and buy a brand new car, you can get a decent, repo car back that's, you know, guaranteed like new, I mean, for a lot less. And I'm just saying is, I just feel the amount of money we're spending on leases is the problem I have. It's not the actual utilization. Like, I'm surprised you guys don't wear it out faster than.
Ours has been going
like duct tape.
the last 6 months, yeah.
And there's nothing worse than a copy machine that's not working.
Okay, any more discussion?
I
Oh,
got a
comments
question.
first.
No, go ahead, Aaron.
Go ahead, Aaron.
Maybe I'm just out of the loop on these cheap fancy trucks. That is just excessive, it seems to me. Or is that just the trend of the way things are going,
Well,
or?
the copiers are very expensive, and particularly when you use them like health
If
and
you
human
use them
services,
on
where
network-
they're used for a personal printer for everybody's PC in the building, and a copier, and a scanner probably in this
And a
case.
fax.
And email,
Yeah.
everything.
They're expensive.
No, I mean, I think the expense is there, it's just how you're gonna pay for that expense. And I'm in favor of us having more of these machines and getting rid of all the little desktop printers. Those things are extremely expensive to operate.
The other thing that, and Kelly may be in the same boat, for us, setting aside money to make these purchases doesn't work. And so we would have to come up with the
Is that
money in a
because of
single
the
budget
state
year.
funding?
Right. But,
How do you do it
if
with,
you did
how do
something,
you do- how do you do it with the cars then?
we set aside a lump sum to buy them when we need them. And if we had to add the copiers into that mix, it's gonna get, and there'll be years when we just won't have any extra money for contracts. But if we had something on the order of the way we do with computers, we might be able to make it work, but we still have to have the same maintenance agreement, because the maintenance agreement is what's
Well,
saving us.
Where you have the money, and this is where, like, when it comes to the budget with the cars, I mean, for every mile a car is driven, there's, so many cents is charged to your
Right,
budget.
but not for the
goes in.
state, the amount paid for the state vehicles is much smaller. We still have to set aside a very large
I mean,
chunk
if you
of money
took
to buy
a
cars.
penny a copy that you make and set it aside, so if you make 3,600, or let's see what.
But we can't set it aside.
Well, and to be honest
You
with
can't
you,
fund
the
it,
last
you can't fund a
10
depreciation
years,
account.
the last 10 years, social services has been the only HSS department that can buy vehicles. Mental health, alcohol and drug, who these copiers are for, they haven't bought vehicles in like over 10 years. They don't have money like that. Social services has a lot more flexible money than mental health, behavioral health, and
I
HSS,
think
which is
maybe,
funded by
maybe
all the
social
departments.
services should buy all the machines and they sell copies to the poor departments that don't have the means to do it.
I've talked about the fact that I have an internal welfare program as well as an external.
To Aaron's point, and just point of clarification, the amounts that are shown in here are for the entire term of the lease, so 5 years and 3 years, so
Right.
just to clarify that.
Banana.
Yeah, well, most of them have been answered, but is there a difference in the maintenance contracts if you buy or you lease these things?
Generally not.
The cost, with the lease, I think they're incorporated in the lease payment,
Right.
whereas with the, if you purchase it, then it's a separate agreement, but I think the cost is the
And
same.
you can't save money on the back end of that lease agreement or the.
Usually
maintenance
the,
agreement.
the-
I don't know anything about it, it's just a
Usually-
question I'm asking.
usually your maintenance and supply costs, is, whatever the business is that you're dealing with, and it will vary from them. Forrest is charging 9/10 of 1 cent for a black copy and 5.5 cents for a color copy, which is fairly competitive. Ray Morgan is charging 8/10 for a black copy, and they're charging 5 cents for a color copy. So, but even a half a cent here, when you take half a cent multiplied by the number of copies you make, that can be a significant sum. And I think really when it comes, and that copy cost there, it covers things like your toner, your maintenance, the parts, all the things that would go above, everything except for paper. You're on your own for paper.
This actually would save us because we're paying
Is that your question, that's
Well, it's, on the second page, it says the 4-unit cash price is 46,000.
Which one are you looking at?
G7?
The 7?
Yeah, G7, yeah, G7.
What page again?
The second page,
Okay,
for the KCDA,
yes.
you're trying to buy 4, or you're trying to lease 4 printers, right? I'm a little confused, because if on said one was 30,000,
No, I said,
Oh, okay.
it would be if I was to pay for it, if I was to walk into Forest office and say, I wanna buy a machine.
oh, and you're not buying it
And I'm not
bulk or
buying it.
whatever, you're just going in as a customer buying one printer.
Right,
So you've got it down to 4 units for 46,000?
that's
You're
what's law.
She
That's-
has the child support contract, we have the
Yeah,
HSS.
yeah, the HSS one is, it's a total over the 60-month period for the lease, $67,691, that's on
Right.
the third page.
Then I
Then
got
if you
that.
add in the 5-year total for the maintenance,
Right,
then that's where you come up with
But
101,000.
if you look at the total retail price,
that's what I was trying to compare.
25,000, and the discount for the KCDA contract is 13,423.
Okay.
I don't know that anybody ever pays full retail, but it's.
Nobody.
No.
Okay, have we hashed that out, good enough?
I get it.
We have a motion for 4 and 7.
I would move approval of 4 and 7.
Second.
I'll second it.
Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I vote no.
It passes. Okay, we will go to G8, Tom.
Looking at this, Melody, they say that, just looking at page 3, your personnel services are $25,000, October, okay, to September. How many underground tanks are there in the county left?
I will let Alan Jones, our environmental health director, answer that question.
There can't be many.
We have, I think it's down to 14 facilities with 30 to 40 tanks. They repair
And you don't obviously do the ag stuff like that, Alan, but, so 4,
Ag tanks that are over a certain size fall into this program,
oh, they do?
but we don't have any permitted because most ag people got rid of their underground tanks a long time ago.
I thought most people did get rid of them in the 90s, even the businesses.
Quite a few did, but we still have quite a few out there. Yes, we have, the county alone has, well, actually, no, I think the county's done. County has a lot of above ground tanks.
So this program, it goes into where that you gotta fill the tank to the top and then check and see if you have any leaks and all that stuff.
Annual monitoring certification, yes.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, I lived through that and, there's more pollution with doing that than having the tank leak.
Okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I had this marked, and I'm glad Tom pulled it, that I missed it, but in the background, the very last sentence, you know, it talks about that this grant will fund the efforts to improve inspections, training, and enforcement. I mean, I think there ought to be stuff, and we ought to be looking at grants to fund the people that have had problems in the past with these old tanks and these old sites where there's contamination problems. That's where our problem is. It's not with enforcement. I mean, as Tom was saying, I mean, technology is getting tighter, or is getting better and better, and our standards are getting tighter and tighter and tighter, just like we had talking here earlier today about the PM10s. I mean, they're setting objectives that you can't meet. And if they go back to these old sites, and Tom, unfortunately, is retired of a couple of them now, I mean, even though they're fine now, 20 years from now, they're gonna come back in and test them, well, you're out of compliance, and well, there goes his.
There is, a state water board does have a leaking underground tank fund that anyone with an underground tank has to pay into over the life. And if they have contamination, then they can apply to get funds from that.
Right, and I just don't think we need to be enhancing our enforcement efforts of this.
This is a program that we already do. This is just a way to try to help us fund what we already do. This is not to create anything new.
Right, and it's state law, you have to do it.
Yes,
It's not that we have a choice as a county. State law says they have to do it, so do they take this money to do it or not? I guess the other option would be you get no fund money if you don't want to turn down doing it. It's another one of them things, we don't have a lot of choice. Any more questions? Harry, good question, answer.
Well, take dog answer, I'm not happy with.
I didn't ask if you were happy with it. Any more questions on this item? Do we have a motion to approve it? Come on, you guys, kick up.
Take out that part of the enhanced enforcement, I would go with it.
Well,
All right, I'll move to
we got a motion, do we have a second? Excellent, piece out of you guys. Jim? Tom?
I tell you, I lived through this stuff and I can like it.
Well,
I'll second the motion.
We got a motion and a second, any more discussion?
I hope they start to enhance enforcement up in areas.
Well, this is underground storage too, not above ground.
Right.
Most of us have above ground.
but they're going back on the old side.
Well, but again, we don't have a choice, it's not our decision, it's state law. Now, do we want to accept their funding to help implement the program in state law, or do we want to not out and do it, and my guess is you're gonna have people from the state of California, Sacramento come up and do it.
Good, they can see how damn expensive it is to come up and do it.
They don't care.
No,
They don't care.
They could care less.
They don't
I
care.
think we went through this with, the oil guy up there in Beaver,
Harvard.
yeah, Harvard.
Yeah, Harvard, on, yeah. Hey, Alan,
He is he's on the cleanup fund.
Yeah, I knew there was an issue there years ago, so I mean, we don't have a, it's not one of them things we have a choice.
Alan, how many ag guys have tanks like that are being inspected?
We don't inspect any underground tanks for ag.
Oh,
If
I
they're
thought
out
you
there, we
said
don't
you
know
did.
about them.
I don't think there is any of them.
Yeah.
I don't know
Okay.
anybody.
Because you're allowed to have, I think it's under 1,100 gallon, and you get farm exemption.
Oh,
It's when you get to a certain volume, then you have to do the annual certifications and testing.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
aye.
Opposed? Aye, good. Okay, the next one is Aaron, you want 9 and 10s.
Yeah, I'm already asking our people for the.
Bias for 9 to be told. So let's cover that. 9, Maureen Anderson. Medical Services. G9 is a resolution request to approve a parcel map waiver, 2014-9 Harkness. And at the very end of the packet, you see that there's 2 extra exhibits. There is an exhibit. So you go to 8 of 8, and then right behind that, there's 4 more pages, 5 through 8, that are the same exhibits with different numbers on them, and those need to be pulled from the packet. There's 2 exhibits. So apologize for that mistake.
Which exhibits need to be pulled?
Exhibit A?
Exhibit, so if you go to the exhibits at the very end, you have Exhibit A, and then you'll have Exhibit B, and that concludes at 8 of 8. And then after 8 of 8, mistakenly, it starts again with Exhibit A, which is exhibit result in parcel 3A, and it's page 5 of 8.
So these pages,
Easy to do.
All right, and so that's all for that one.
Easy to do.
Unless there's any questions.
I have a question on
sounds like the copy machine went amok.
It did. That cost, how much?
That
4
cost-
pages?
It says
That cost you some money
It
there.
did.
Aaron?
Yeah, on the page 1 or 2, Maureen, we're talking about this is a segregation of home site by parcel map waiver.
Mhm.
If this is a segregation of home site, isn't there a 10-year?
There is, and it is a departure that it's not in that resolution talking about the 10-year deal like we talked about. Any kind of segregation of home site you can only do once every 10 years. It is noted on the actual waiver, if you go to the waiver, page 1 of 8, let's see. It's in there somewhere.
There it is, right there. There it is.
So it's included in the waiver, and that's the right place, but it normally is noted in the resolution, so that is a departure. As a planning commissioner, you caught that. That's good eyes, because we want to go back to having it everywhere. But it's in there. As well, the next item, which is G10, it's not noted in the resolution, but it is a requirement of the code, and it is on the map.
Well, that's why I asked 9 and 10 to be pulled, because it wasn't, the 10-year wasn't identified in the 10-year waiver.
Good eye, Commissioner. I mean Supervisor Ella.
Can we modify the resolution to incorporate a reference to that so that there's?
Certainly, you can have an extra finding for each resolution that
I think that would be
that repeats what's in the waiver. It'd be the same language in that waiver.
good. Yeah.
Yes.
I think it would be better if we could do that.
And with those changes to both 9 and to 10, I would move to approval.
Thank you. Second?
I'll second it.
Motion and second. Any more discussion? Any Thursday? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Ayes have it. The next
So I'm
one,
getting new resolution.
There is no more. I was not intending,
Was
correct?
that officially 10 as well?
That's, yeah.
Okay.
You bet.
Thank you.
Okay, come up and state your name.
The
Michelle Porter, Porter Farms.
Okay,
Yeah.
come up to the podium.
Oh, okay,
You have to do this.
okay.
If I don't let you
I'll
do
be
it, I get
official.
capped and make everybody do it.
Hello, I'm Michelle Porter from Porter Farms.
Your
Thank you.
pleasure. It's easy.
Okay, so I just wanted to make sure that 10 was also addressed there.
Yes.
Yes?
It was. We just, Maury explained to her the condition of the 10-year thing, just, you know.
I just said 9 and then he scooped 10 in and I just want to make sure.
I did.
Okay, thank you.
I had 10 total because it wasn't identified on the terms of conditions, it was a
Right.
10-year wait period.
I got
So
it.
that's, we got it on there now, so we're all good.
Okay.
You're good. I'm sorry, I wasn't real clear. Okay, any more discussion on anything under consent calendar? We've covered it all. Okay. Let's see, where do we go next? What else I have not covered? H2, is that it?
Yeah.
H2, is that Richard?
Okay, I just have two items. Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Chapman and I both received emails from John Mallory regarding the Honey Lake Resource Conservation District again. The specific issue this time is in advance of the water master assessment being placed on the tax rolls for the 14-15 year. Again, Mr. Mallory's complaint is that the RCD is not complying with the requirements in terms of the water code as far as the assessment and apportionment of the water master fee. Even though I agree with his analysis that they're failing to notify the users of the apportionment individually, I do believe that it's within the jurisdiction of the RCD and the method for disputes regarding that is to go to the Superior Court. There is a perfunctory act that Mr. Mallory is requesting that the board not take, which is to lien the property, which throughout the budget process, the board makes a perfunctory act of liening the property for those assessments as they deal with property tax and all other assessments. The code, the way the auditor has interpreted it, is that it's a shall. The board shall enroll that on the tax roll if certain things are done. That's predicated on other requirements that the RCD and others, an auditor and so forth would do. So I guess what Mr. Mallory is saying is how can the board take, even though this is a perfunctory act that's required by the code, how can they do that if the steps prerequisite to that are not done? So at any rate, I think the county council and I will discuss that further, but it's the same issue that's been raised for a couple of years.
Well, the reason why I forwarded the email when it came in late last week to me, and it was just addressed to me, and I'm not sure why I was singled out. And the complaint being is that the process is defined in the code is not being apparently followed. And I mean, there's several steps, and they apparently missed the first step. So how do you complete the second, third, fourth, fifth step? And last year we had both Mr. Mallory and Mr. Trask were before the board complaining about the assessments being put on. There's a drop dead date that has to be done sometime in early August that the auditor takes the action, which basically incorporates it within the tax roll that will be prepared and the tax bill sent out and money is to be collected. And like I indicated in my email forwarding it to Mr. Egan, instead of waiting until August to have that fight, the fact that, you know, these steps are here is, I think it's to our best interest. Maybe at our next meeting, county council can, along with Mr. Egan, can research what those steps are. Maybe we can invite all the parties, the RCD, the complainants, you know, county staff, all the folks, and let's review what those procedures are so that there's a clear understanding that prior to this drop dead date in August, these are the things that have to be done and why they have to be done and what the authority of the code directs to be done, so that we could have that discussion before the fact and not after the fact. That was my main reason for forwarding it to Mr. Egan, hopefully. And I think I CC'd it to Mr. Wasik, thinking that he would be here since he's the chair of the board. I just don't wanna see us have that same fight after the fact, if we can, you know, head it off hit it off at the pass and get them so they can do what they have to do right in advance.
Right, and it's too late to fix this issue. According to the code, the district would have had to notify that apportionment by June 15th, so, which I don't know that they've done correctly ever, maybe once or twice, I'm not sure. But that's the fundamental issue here, is the apportionment. We could still have this discussion again, if that's what the board wants to do. We're happy to do it, but I think it's the same old discussion.
Well, if we could have that on the next agenda for discussion, I think it would be worthwhile to have all the parties, have all the combatants here and let them find out what the rules of the game are supposed to be and how it's done, whether they complied with it this time or not. I mean, you know, they can, maybe Mr. Egan can, you know, make the pitch, they can, the judicial matters, if you have an issue, don't be appealing to us, appeal to the court, so. Yeah, it's kind of like that rings thing, you know, it's like, it's not a hard decision.
The only other update was as Chairman Kyle knows, we've been continuing to meet at the Budget Committee and getting closer towards a budget recommendation from my office forthcoming very soon. The state budget, other than perhaps some public safety augmentations, doesn't hold a lot of great things for the county. No Williamson Act, no state bill, no fair funding, which were three things that we're somewhat hoping for. So not a lot of good news, but we're working to close the gap. That's all I have.
Thank you, Richard.
Nice meeting, Bob.
Thank you. I appreciate the compliment. Anybody else have anything from the board, the public, before we get here? Okay.
Are you on us?
The board.